What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the Garden Room Podcast. If you're new here, my name is Mari Thrower, and these are devotional episodes to hopefully encourage you throughout your week. And hope you guys are feeling good today. I hope you guys have been having a good week. As we dive into today's episode, I just want to talk about how God has already prepared a way for you. And sometimes that can be hard to believe. Sometimes it feels like we're just scattered all over the place. Sometimes we have maybe heard the voice of God. Maybe we have seen his hand at work. Maybe we know what he's calling us to do. Maybe we know the set of instructions that he has laid out for us. But it's hard for us to really start walking in that obedience, to know that God has already prepared the way for us. He's already made a way in our situations. And really, I want to just dive in deeper into having a heart of how we can prepare the way for God, because a lot of our stress, a lot of our maybe worries, a lot of our just doubts can sometimes start to take place when we are so focused on how God is going to make a way for us, and we're so focused on our plans, and we're so just locked in on how God is going to come through for us, because we're always trying to figure out what God is doing. We're always trying to figure out how he's going to do it. And I found myself kind of wrestling with that, trying to see how God was going to make a way for me in different situations, or trying to see how God is going to lay things out in the future. But the Lord just reminded me to have my focus and have my mindset fixated on how I can prepare a way for him, how I can do his will, how I can keep my mindset focused on what he has told me to do so I can make room for him, not him figuring out ways to make room for me. And I think that is such an important aspect, and it's such an important characteristic of humility, saying, God, it is important to me to prioritize your will, to prioritize preparing your way, not just always asking God, how are you going to make a way for me? How are you going to make room for what I need, for what I want? And I feel like there's nothing wrong with asking the Lord to show you things for your life and asking him to come through in the ways that you want him to. But I had to also remind myself of, as I've said so many times throughout just different episodes, it's a heart posture change. I had to change up my perspective and just my perception of how I viewed my life and how I want to view God. And so I want to read to you guys out of Luke chapter 22, and we're going to go through verse 7 through about 13. And this is talking about the preparation of the Last Supper. In verse 7, it says, "Then came the day of unleavened bread, on which the Passover lamb had to be sacrificed. Jesus sent Peter and John, saying, 'Go and make preparations for us to eat the Passover.' 'Where do you want us to prepare for it?' they asked. He replied, 'As you enter the city, a man carrying a jar of water will meet you. Follow him to the house that he enters, and say to the owner of the house, "The teacher asks, where is the guest room where I may eat the Passover with my disciples?" He will show you a large room upstairs, all furnished. Make preparations there." Then they left and found things just as Jesus had told them. So they prepared the Passover. And as I was going through that passage, you guys, it was just so encouraging to me, because I was going back through my old Bible, just reading through the Last Supper, and I was just reminded of how we can kind of just miss some of the details in the midst of that. But I wrote down, just saying in a little side note, that Jesus has already prepared your future. Like, he already knows what will take place. And so you just have to trust that. And I just love how the disciples, as soon as the Lord gave them directions, they just went. They just went and walked in obedience. And all that may have not made a whole lot of sense to them in the moment. All these different directions. God, where are we going to prepare for this Passover feast? How is this going to take place? What do you mean we're going to meet someone who has a jar of water and follow him and then ask the owner? All these different complex, detailed things that the Lord just laid out before him, that Jesus was like, this is what's going to happen. Go and follow through with it. But I love this last verse that says, they left and found things just as Jesus had told them. And there's such a peace of mind knowing that when God has given us instructions, or he set something on our heart, or he has asked us to do things that don't necessarily make sense, we can trust that things will take place the way that he told us that they would. But from point A to point B, that takes obedience. Because so many times I've found myself saying, well, God, if you know what's going to take place, then why can't you just step in? Why can't you just intervene? Why can't you just do it for me? And I feel like, as the disciples are hearing him lay out all these different details, they probably could also think about the fact that, well, if Jesus already knows what needs to be done in preparation, why didn't he just come with us? Why doesn't he just, make this all happen in his timing? But when God gives us an assignment, a lot of times that takes faith. And we have to trust and believe his words. And then we get to see the actions of that faith come behind it, of those words come to pass. And I think sometimes it can be so easy to just forget who holds our future in the midst of having that faith, because the fears start creeping in of, what if this actually doesn't take place the way that God said so? What if this actually doesn't happen the way that I felt like the Lord was telling me it would? What if? But there is peace in knowing that everything God has said, when we are walking in obedience, and if he has said it, if he has spoken it, if he has put truth behind it, then we can have a full level of trust knowing that it'll be set up the way that he said so. And so I just want to remind you guys of that. When we are preparing the way of the Lord, we can trust in what he is doing. And we can know that he has already made a way for us for those things to take place. But it's going to take faith in that in-between time. It's going to take trust that if God spoke to you about something that's over there, then you have to trust him right here, right now, throughout every step of the way, and knowing that he will meet your needs when you get to that point. He will be right there in that moment. So just keep the Lord at the center of your heart and let that be what drives you and directs you. And constantly keep asking yourself, how can I prepare the way for you, Lord? How can I make a way for you? How can I be at service to you? And when you start walking in that and you start taking your eyes off of yourself, but putting them on the Lord, you start to find your steps get a lot lighter. Not because you're not going to face trouble or trials or just challenges. It's because you're not having to worry about making a way on your own. You're starting to recognize that God has already made a way, already prepared things, already made things happen, and he's already ahead of you. And he's covering you on every side. So I pray that that just encourages you guys today. I pray that you guys are just able to keep that in mind when you're facing different things, when you don't know which way to go. Just keep asking God, how can I make room for you in this moment? And just know that I'm praying for you guys throughout all the different things each of you may be facing or going through. And I'm so, so thankful for just how the Lord works, who he is, and how he is constantly able to help us and give us the strength that we need to keep overcoming things as we continuously lift up his name and glorify him throughout the process. But as we close out today's episode, you guys, know that the Lord is with you. He is fighting for you and he's already ahead of you. And until the next time, keep growing with God, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.